Welcome to the Happiness Matters podcast, where we'll explore happiness at work and show you how to coach yourself to be happier there and more successful too, no matter what.
Hello everyone, I'm Julia Seal, and today is our question and answer session to follow episode 1.6. Last week was more than just a single episode because we wrapped up our Series 1, Defining, Assessing and Visioning You're Happy and Successful at Work No Matter What. In the episode, we look beyond the obvious to discover what's really getting in the way of happiness and success for you. What is the most difficult thing, and what would need to change for you to be happy no matter what? With inspiration from Gandhi and Nelson Mandela and Great White Shark flag warnings, we discover the very obstacle strategies that will have the biggest impact on you. I also summarized our coaching journey to date since our launch on International Workers' Day, the 1st of May, and described where we're heading next. I hope it all sounds exciting to you. Today's episode is just to answer some questions specifically about last week's concepts that I introduced. This ensures you don't get stuck on your journey with me if you don't understand something. It gives you a chance to let your learning deepen and your insights settle. And of course, it's fun to know where other people are on this happiness coaching journey. Before I get started today, however, I want to let you know that my popular 8-week one-on-one coaching program for difficult relationships is now available for booking. Do you have a difficult boss, a negative coworker, or a critical leadership team? Do these relationships bother you? Do they get in the way of your happiness and success at work? I really can help you to transform these troublesome relationships forever. You shouldn't lose any more sleep worrying about work. You won't need a glass of wine after another horrid day, and nor will you bore your friends and family with the next installment of how awful they are. In just 8 weeks of individual coaching with me, we can end your worry, frustration, anger, anxiety, and shame that you might be feeling about that difficult person you have in your life. Over the 8 weeks, we coach one relationship, and you'll master 10 skills that you'll be able to apply to and transform any other relationship in your life. That does sound good, doesn't it? So if you're interested, you can book a 20 minutes consult session with me to see how I can help you, or you can go directly to booking and payment on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach, and click on the yellow button. We start coaching in the week of the 19th of August, and all coaching will end in late October in 2019, and there are 15 spaces available. The next available dates for this program are in February 2020. So truly, why wait? Join me now and get it done this year. Thinking ahead, if you're listening to this much further in the future, you'll find everything you need on our website. I really look forward to coaching you to transform these most difficult relationships on your journey towards happy and successful no matter what. Right, so now let's quickly review what we looked at last week. We dive much deeper into what's stopping you from your success and happiness at work, looking at the types of obstacles you're experiencing, obstacles that are outside of you and obstacles that are inside of you. From the viewpoint of using coaching as transformation rather than just a topical fix of different tactics, we explore why change is hard for us as humans, so you can find the very thing that's going to have the biggest impact on your happiness and success at work, no matter what. I introduce the concepts of internal and external power in your life and buffering, as well as how to use a red flag guidance system to help you navigate while you self-coach. We also look at how taking a 2-degree shift with advice from Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela can see you making changes from today, changes that are not too onerous to try right now. And of course, I had to introduce you to South African knickknacks. You haven't lived without trying them first. Just don't use them to buffer your happiness. Let's also briefly go through the coaching tool for episode 1.6. There are 2 parts to this coaching tool. Firstly, it's a continuation of episode 1.5's coaching tool called Your Future Self Journey. Again, this is a step-by-step process that is quite self-explanatory and asks you to look at your obstacles in more detail, especially in the context of change. The questions repeatedly ask you what needs to change in order to bring you to your transformational topic of coaching. This tool also brings life to the entire Series 1 process. It's an overview of the coaching we've done to date, from happiness in the moment all the way through to your future, no matter what happiness. You now have a visual map in your hands of what your coaching journey actually is. Isn't this an amazing process? The second element to the coaching tool is a letter from your future self, which I've attached to the same worksheet. This section brings your future self vision to life in an incredibly powerful way that breathes life into it and gives it energy and presence in your life today. An essential component to taking the leap into change, the leap into transformation and everyday self-coaching. As a reminder, you'll find it to download on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach, under the free and fun section. Now we can get started on the questions from 1.6. Most of the queries I've received have been about the concept of buffering that we spoke about last week. If you remember, I described buffering as a guideline to use to get below the surface of your obstacles to the topic where coaching can make the biggest difference to you. If you haven't already listened to it, I suggest you listen back to 1.6, which will give you much more detail about what buffering is. But the short explanation is any activity that gives us immediate relief or immediate pleasure so that we don't have to deal with the negative, the uncomfortable, and the worrisome in our lives. So yes, it's the same as when Netflix is buffering the next part of your movie. While buffering is going on, everything hangs in the balance and waits. Your life waits, and your happiness and success waits. We can buffer with anything that takes us away from those negative feelings. From pornography, alcohol, and drugs, to binge-watching TV, reading, smoking, and eating. It's really just like procrastination, using something external that feels good in the moment that takes us away from what's facing us now. So some of the questions centered around understanding when you are buffering and when you are not. So when is watching TV buffering and when is it not? Or when is having a drink after work buffering and when is it not? Or when is working overtime buffering and when is it not? To know when you're buffering, look at an activity that you're doing to block thoughts and feelings about your life. Thoughts you don't want to think, feelings that you don't want to feel, and things you don't want to do. To pause your life. So here are some examples. Eating mindlessly in front of the TV to avoid talking to your husband about the fight you had yesterday. Binge watching TV series and avoiding going to bed because you don't want morning to come and it's time to go back to the job you hate. Spending double the amount of time on a minor presentation because you don't want to answer that difficult email from your least favorite colleague. Having one drink and then another, and possibly another, because of the hard day you had at work and you just need relief. Then you ask, what's so bad about buffering? I love my TV and my popcorn, or my first drink when I get home. So what's so bad about this? What does this have to do with my happiness and success in my life or at work? This is related to the first question, when is it buffering and when is it not? Are you avoiding thinking, feeling, or doing something that is uncomfortable but necessary in your life? What makes buffering bad is that you're putting your life on hold, like a pause button. And not only this, the subject of your buffering has what's called a net negative effect. That is, While it's offering you some relief from the unpleasant feelings you don't want to feel now, it has a longer-lasting negative effect on you, over and above just the avoidance of whatever you're avoiding. It has an additional negative impact that outweighs the positive benefits it's bringing you in the moment. So if we use the example to describe the net negative effect, eating mindlessly in front of the TV, buffering with food, the net negative effect is the after effects of overeating on your body. You might feel overly full and uncomfortable in bed and you don't sleep well. You might feel sick and nauseous when you wake up. You might be cross and disappointed in yourself for eating when you weren't hungry. Binge watching TV and avoiding going to bed, buffering with TV, the net negative effect is that you're tired the next day, and so your resilience to show up at work positively and do good work is even more difficult. You might even be less creative or less energetic for other activities the next day. Spending double the amount of time on a minor presentation, buffering with overwork, the net negative effect is you might have a headache the next day from squinting too long at the screen or backache. You might have annoyed your family because you weren't available to them. You might be too tired to give to an important work relationship or too wound up to get any relief from stress in the next day. Having a drink and then another, buffering with alcohol. The net negative effect is the after effects of over-drinking on your body. You might sleep very badly and have no energy the next day. You might feel sick all day or have a headache. I hope these explanations and examples help you to work out when you are buffering in your life and when it's getting in the way of your own long-term happiness and success, not only at work, but in your everyday life. Then we also received some comments on using the red flag and 2-degree shift concepts. These are such small concepts, they almost seem insignificant, but they're immensely powerful and useful. And I want to highlight the insights from those who've used these concepts to good use already. So before our coaching together has actually started, you've taken some first steps already. I'll share 3 examples of how clients are using these so that you can make a start with them too. Let's look at an example of using the red flag system with a difficult relationship. I'm paraphrasing here. I noticed that whenever this person approached me in the office, I would get anxious, and mostly I would get breathless. Instead of trying to get rid of this anxiety in my usual way, moving away from them and avoiding meeting them in the corridor, or using chocolate to help me get over an interaction with them, I started to use my breathless feeling as a red flag. As soon as I noticed my breath getting short and tight when this person was in the vicinity, I started focusing on deepening my breathing, which made me feel calmer, and I was able to deal with them from a calmer, more powerful place. Just this one small tool. Here's another example of a client using their low energy of not wanting to do a task as a red flag to help them push through procrastination. Again, paraphrasing. I'm a terrible procrastinator, and I started to notice that I felt so exhausted and despondent just before I started procrastinating by going to the kitchen area to talk to someone. I used the low energy I was feeling as a red flag that I was about to procrastinate, and I was able to start sitting with this horrid feeling at my desk until I did 5 minutes work on that task. After I'd done this a few times, the task no longer felt so bad and the feelings disappeared, and so did the need to go and find people to talk to. Lastly, here's an example that brings us back to our very first episode about using the happiness ladder. Paraphrasing again, I felt stuck in a meaningless job and was desperate to find another one. By using the happiness ladder as a check-in with myself, I was able to find small moments of enjoyment and meaning throughout my day. While I still didn't feel completely happy and successful at work, I've definitely found myself less stressed about having to look for a new job and the job hunt. This is a great example of using our first coaching tool as both a red flag navigation system and to take a 2-degree shift with long-term results. Thanks to those of you who sent in questions. They're so useful for others to hear, and also for me, as it helps me further clarify the concepts for you and bring depth to our coaching. Please continue to submit them, as we'll regularly bring you Q&A sessions on topics introduced in the podcast, no matter where we are on the coaching journey. So even if you're listening to this much further in the future, your questions will still be relevant, and I'd love to hear from you. Submit them to us in our Facebook coaching group, Happiness-Matters.coach, or directly on our website at Ask Julia on Happiness-Matters.coach. Lastly, please do share this podcast with your friends and colleagues who would be interested, so they too can explore how to coach themselves to happiness and success at work. They can find it by searching for Happiness-Matters.coach on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram, and of course on our website, www.happiness-matters.coach. This is now the end of the Series 1 coaching journey of defining, assessing, and visioning. I'd love to hear from you how this first part of learning how to coach yourself has made a difference to you already. I'd love to hear about that first stone, your first obstacle that you've stepped onto in order to cross the river of misery towards your happy and successful at work, no matter what. I'd love to hear about your own Odysseus Harry Potter coaching journey. So now at the end of the Series 1, we're on to the next phase in our coaching work together. The upcoming bonus episodes will bring many of these concepts to life and help you to integrate the work we've done so far. There really is no better time to do this work together. Bye for now from an extremely cold winter morning for Cape Town. We've actually got a white frost on the grass outside and ice on the car windows. This only happens once or twice a winter here at 34 degrees south.
Thanks for joining us on this Happiness Matters podcast. Do join us again here next week on Tuesday. You can subscribe to this series at Apple Podcasts on iTunes, or you can sign up for it on our website, Happiness-Matters.coach. That's Happiness-Matters.coach. COACH. Also, you can join our conversation on Facebook by following us there. Our Facebook page is also Happiness-Matters.coach.